Ocarina of Time. It's the first game I ever played, and man, what an experience. The soundtrack is one of the most iconic in the history of gaming. The dungeons are some of the most memorable locations in any game. The boss designs were fantastic. They'd range from like weird-ass giant spider things with like a single eye on the back of their body to a long sea slime monster to an angry pig man with two giant gilded swords. The first time playing Ocarina of Time is just one of the most memorable gaming experiences in my life. Then, on top of that, they followed up with a sequel that subverted all expectations, while maintaining an equally iconic score and set of characters. They smack you with one of the saddest, darkest Nintendo titles hidden behind bright colors and an ESRB rating. These kind of memorable characters, music scores, and enemy designs are exactly what make a Zelda game so iconic and fun to look back on. Even now, Zelda's still my favorite gaming franchise. I look forward to every game, so naturally, Breath of the Wild 2, I am stoked about. But who cares about all that? This video is about Breath of the Wild 1, and looking at it 5 years later. Honestly, when they announced it, I don't think there was anybody more hyped than me. Well, okay, that's probably not true. There's probably like a lot of people more hyped than me. But whatever, that doesn't matter. When they said it was going to be an open world game, I was sold instantly. And speaking of open world, what's a better way to start this retrospective than at the Great Plateau? I mean, just look at it. It's beautiful. You can't deny it. This open world is insanely beautiful. Obviously, it's never going to be as magical as the first time you leave the Shrine of Resurrection, but the view is just so great. It's just such a great opening shot. I mean, you just see the whole world in front of you, which is obviously one of Breath of the Wild's greatest strengths. They don't hold your hand like the opening hours of Skyward Sword or Twilight Princess. They just show you the world and say, here you go. Right away, you realize the combat in this game is the best it's ever been in a Zelda game. The movement feels fun and fluid, the enemies are satisfying to smack around, and not to mention the amount of options the game gives you in attacking enemies. I mean, you can call an artillery strike on a group of poor bokoblins, you can use your shield to reflect the laser bullets of the guardians, you can even freaking smack around a Lionel with a boulder. I mean, what the hell? However, with the combat comes my first major critique of Breath of the Wild. I know it's been said like 400,000 times across YouTube and Reddit or whatever, but I personally think Breath of the Wild's durability system is one of the weakest in any game I have ever played. I know, you hate my guts now. But no, seriously, I get the weapons are supposed to be viewed as like a consumable, but for me, I think it just totally nulls any sort of substantial reward that the game has. If you take previous games, for example, if you figure out an overworld puzzle, you'd be rewarded with a heart piece or upgraded gear. Or in other open world games, you get badass weapons that you can use for the entire adventure. It's just impossible for me to be excited when I get a new crazy looking sword because I know it's going to explode shortly. And there's pretty much no indication. I mean, okay, your weapons like flash red for a couple seconds before it blows up in front of your face. But outside of that, there's no way to know how close your weapon is to blowing up. And you're telling me that the elite Hyrulean warriors would use these fucking cool-ass giant swords that break after you take down one group of puny bokoblins? It's obvious why this world was doomed. And there's no way to repair your weapon unless you count the champion weapons, which require a silly amount of materials. So yeah, I doubt you'll be doing that. And now, I know for a lot of people they like this system because it requires you to use so many other weapons that you normally wouldn't use. And I'm not against weapon durability necessarily, even though I don't personally like it. I just think that there should be a way to either repair your weapons or, like I said before, just like a progress bar. So that way you know that your weapon's about to blow up and, you know, you either got to take it to the blacksmith to get it repaired or you got to do it yourself. So, I mean, I just hope that in Tears of the, or Tears, whatever, of the Kingdom, I just hope that they expand on it at least if they keep it in. Oh boy, this video is going to probably feel a little negative, but it's not, I promise, before we get into this next point, because I do love the game. Enemy variety. Yep, here it is. I'm sure a lot of us were thinking it. In the past, we've had countless different types of crazy looking monsters that Ganon cooked up for us. Look at everything from Twilight Princess, or Wind Waker, or Ocarina of Time, or Majora, whatever. They all have so much diversity. And I get that it must have been easier to make dozens of enemies for the N64 or the GameCube than it is for a modern game with a massive open world. But I personally think I'd rather have a smaller world filled with wildly different groups of monsters than a huge world that has like 6 enemy types with different color variants. I mean, literally, even the armor change on like red bokoblins, blue bokoblins, black and white bokoblins, that would be huge for me. But instead, it's all just different colors, no armor or anything. Well, okay, and more health, but that's it. It just gets kind of old seeing the same enemies over the span of 100+ hours. Okay, I swear this video is not like this negative the whole time, but the feeling of repetitiveness doesn't just stop at enemy variety. We also have Korok seeds, shrines, and dungeons. The Korok seeds are really a minor complaint for me. I just don't understand why there's freaking 900 of them. I get that it's for completionists, but like, it's such a slap to the face when you hunt them all down and then you just get a piece of poop. They're fun little overworld puzzles, but it's just like a little bit bloated. It's like, it's for the sake of having something to do. But again, that's not really a huge issue. However, the shrines, man, after doing 120 of them, I had zero desire to ever do them again. Even 5 years later, it feels rough for me to power through some of these. And I don't even remember any of them. And there it is. Memorability. That's one thing. It's just like the shrines and the dungeons, they just don't have, like, they all feel the same on the inside. I mean, if they just change the design of some of them, like depending where you are, like lava or fire theme for Death Mountain, water or ice for Zora's Domain, you know, like that kind of thing. I think that could have benefited the game a ton. Or given us less shrines but added more substance to each one. Like, did we really need 30 tests of might or 90 separate single puzzle mini dungeons? It would have been cool to have like 30 mini dungeons that are expanded and have 3 times the amount to do in it. I don't know, it just seems like there could have been something. And like I said, I was kind of lumping them together, but the dungeons suffer the same issues as shrines, with the lack of diversity in each one. You show up, do a quick little puzzle, badass minigame doo-wop, and then you enter the dungeon. But then you go in, and the interior looks identical to the previous Divine Beast you conquered. Obviously the puzzles are different, but I can't remember a single Divine Beast off the top of my head. Compare that to literally any other Zelda dungeon in any other Zelda game, where I can remember at least one part of about every dungeon. The music shines in each one of the dungeons, but even for that, for the most part, it's not as memorable as like Stone Temple or the Forest Dungeon. Then you get to the boss, and it's a different looking monster with the same color palette and a pretty similar design to the other ones. I mean, you know, shoot, it changed it up a little bit. I mean, maybe I'm just nostalgic for like running away from like a giant goat beast or a big skeleton or an angry Yeti lady. I don't know, I think I just missed the old bosses. They were so unique. They felt so special every time you got to one. But even after all of that, I know it seems so unbelievably negative, but every time I fire up the good old Switch, which is on the verge of explosion itself, and play this game, it just feels so good. The world is truly beautiful, and I can just wander around it for hours. The art style, the villages, the characters living in the world, the freedom of climbing any mountain, when it's not raining, of course. It's just incredible. There are probably no companies that can create an open world that is so full of nothing, that can captivate me this way. There's just like not much there, but it just makes me feel like it's so alive. It's so fun to be a part of. Although I of course miss like the bombastic scores of the older games, I do think the somber soundtrack of this game fits the vibe of the game so well. When you're just cruising through the night on your horse and you get the piano notes of Zelda's Lullaby. Or when you're just standing on top of a mountain, you're just looking over Hyrule and you're like, damn, I'd like to live here. You know, if it wasn't infested with like monsters and all that. But whatever. My first playthrough of this game, I didn't care about any of the critiques I just had. I was playing through it and I was in love with it. I thought it was the best game I had ever played. And then it wasn't until, 100 hours in and like on a second playthrough that I was like, man, there's just so much more they could have done with this. I'm grateful for what it has. It's a foundation for something that could be outstanding. I mean, Tears of the Kingdom, it could be potentially the greatest game ever made if they just fix some of the issues that I think that Breath of the Wild 1 has. But I mean, that's just my opinion. What do I know? I'm just a dude. This is like my first YouTube video. I don't fucking know.